and welcome to another episode of Power On Podcast Portable. How is everyone doing out there? I am Sushi B, and of course with me is the noble Murugaru 553, better known as Taylor.
Ooh, I'm noble.
Yes, you are now a noble. Regal, the regal one.
The regal one. Oh, goodness. How you doing there?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself? You're all settled back home for the most part now, I guess?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, and we've got I don't I was thinking about this today before this recording a little bit earlier, and a lot of the stuff that we've been doing lately have been games that maybe we have some affinity to, or that we generally seem to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this game was kind of out of the blue, I guess, right? I mean, it wasn't something personally that I was like, oh, I've got to play this game, or I love this game from back in the day, or something like that. I just kind of picked it up. I'd heard about it. I heard some nice things about it, so I thought, let's give this a crack.
Yeah, I remember when it had come out, there was a little bit of a fervor for it, but then kind of how things are lately when it comes to games is that, shortly after its release, or right up to its release, then it just kind of dies out, and then the next thing comes in, and it's all like that game. Blah, 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 blah. So,
yeah, very short term, a lot of things.
Right. So, personally, I hadn't really thought of it at all. I was just kind of like, okay, it's a game, cool, the end. But that was just, I don't know. I'm pretty bad when it comes to the up-to-date stuff when it comes to games. Just I don't have the time for it. There's plenty of old games that I haven't fully played through that I'd like to, sort of thing. So those keep me entertained. So that's all you can ask for.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, again, so I was a little pleased, though, that we kind of branched out from that, though, just being a little bit in the comfort zone and just sort of saying, okay, let's try something we're not both experienced with at all. Let's just try something completely new to us.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's good to kind of break out of that every now and again. I mean, I do that too, even though I say I don't keep up with modern games. It's nice to kind of try something that you're not familiar with, just to see, well, maybe you might like it, or you might not. But at the end of the day, at least you tried it.
Right. A few people had suggested this game to me, even though I wouldn't necessarily say it's a genre that I typically get into. But, so I was aware of it. I ended up throwing this in a package for you some time ago now, and I picked up a copy myself. So I didn't pay much, obviously, for 2 copies. Which, that's not saying a bad thing. That's just, I mean, they were used games, so they were not expensive.
I know, but it just sounds, it was cheap, so I sent it to you at the end.
Well, it wasn't partly, I had heard good things. I really did. I had heard good things. So I saw the price and I thought, let's give this a shot. This sounds good. The price was right, so I went for it. And here we are. Here's our look at Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. Right, so this was a 2010 release, so it's getting a little bit long in the tooth now. I kind of thought it was a little more recent than it is, but that's not a problem at all. We are covering the PlayStation 3 version today, but this game was released on the Xbox 360, and I think it was on Steam, or I think it's on the PC in some format.
That sounds right. I think it was released on on the Windows, not too horribly long ago, I think. But yeah, this is totally about the PS3 version.
All right. Anyways, so if you do know, please tell us what platform it was on PC, if it was just Windows or whatever. But we are covering the PS3 version today, and it's an interesting game. It's for some people who are interested in film, might know the actor. He mostly does the motion capture now, and that's Andy Serkis. He's most well known for he's most well known for playing Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the follow-up series, the Hobbit. I believe Gollum's in there anyways. I haven't seen them, but he also plays King Kong in the King Kong remake from maybe about, I guess that's almost 10 years ago now, or 8 or 9 years ago now, but he played King Kong in that. He also recently has been working in the Planet of the Apes series. Was it Rise of the Planet of the Apes? And
is he Caesar?
geez, he is Caesar. What was the other one that was? Geez, I haven't seen them yet. So, but he definitely plays the main character in that. So he's definitely done a lot of motion capture stuff in recent years, and a lot of people have been clamoring for a sort of recognition for his work in this field and sort of expanding the field, kind of, I guess, in the way that animatronics and puppets did long, long ago before that, with people like Frank Oz, who did Yoda and stuff like that, and obviously Jim Henson and such. But anyway, so he's actually motion captured in this game, and he also features his voice in this game for the main character, who is Monkey.
Monkey.
And there's a dog barking. Somebody really likes Monkey, apparently. But anyways, it was interesting to see some of the caliber of talent, especially with him being attached to this project for myself. I was really surprised to see that. I know you're not that familiar with who he is, but people who are interested in film are quite aware of who he is.
Yeah, I was about to say I have no idea who that is. So, well, I mean, I now that you mention that other stuff, okay, but yeah, didn't realize that he was such a well-known, or maybe not well-known, but just such a, what's the word I want to use? Prolific person in the
Film
media,
industry.
the film industry and such.
Yeah.
But
He's certainly sought after. I know he will also be featured in the upcoming Star Wars franchise, the new franchise that they're starting, like the Episode 7, and he's also doing some work in the next Avengers film as well. So he's definitely he's quite sought after by a lot of companies for projects. So
sounds like a very busy beaver there.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. So. But why don't you go into the story here a little bit? What is this game sort of based on, and then maybe expand from there. Obviously, it's not only covering where the mythology comes from, but maybe if you would like to take the reins on that.
Oh, well, I was going to say it's what would you like, a modern adaptation of Journey to the West, which is that
Loose adaptation.
Yeah. I mean, there are
A lot of
certain...
stuff's cut out, obviously.
Right. There are a lot of
the
stuff
main
cut
idea is
out.
there.
Main idea is there for it. Maybe you could say it's a modern homage to the Journey to the West, but I mean, it's
With a steampunk theme to
I
it,
guess
sort of?
I wouldn't say steampunk. I'd say more apocalyptic.
Okay, sure.
Because it's it's in the future and everything went to squat there.
Yep.
and you have these mechs that are snatching up people, and they they label them as like slave ships to kind of take them away and who do whatever.
Yep.
And
nobody seems to know, I guess.
Nobody seems
where
to
they're
know.
being taken.
And you don't know until the end, which is kind of an issue. But I think that's kind of a bit of a pacing issue with that. It's a little kind of weird with that. But you only have like 3 characters. That is, as you mentioned before, Monkey, who is pretty much Son Goku there from Journey to the West, who's also what Goku's based off of from Dragon Ball. He has this kind of this staff that grows out there that like expands and stuff, and you can beat the hell out of mechs with it and stuff, which is fun. And with
like
him,
you do.
like you do, just normal kind of stuff.
Got a stick.
And he also uses these giant kind of glove thing. I don't know what that
gauntlet type things.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah. And with him is a woman named Trip. Now, is the voice actor for this anything? Is she like,
Um, I don't know. I don't recognize her name, but I just quickly kind of looked up a little bit about her. She's fairly young. I think it says she's only like 25, so she's a young actress. I think she's done some television work and stuff, but I don't know if she's quite really well known or anything. But maybe she
okay.
will be in the near future. I don't know. So,
Okay, and basically, kind of just to set things up, they're both captured, and she escapes. Monkey sees this chick leaving. She's like, "Hey," he's like, "Hey, help me,
wait up, yeah.
come on," you know.
She's just kind of
And she's
does
like,
the
"Nope."
fake turn the blind eye. She pretends he's not even there, essentially.
Right, and so as
And
the
this
yeah,
it leads to a very interesting and kind of explosive intro to the game,
right.
literally.
Right. And so yeah, and so he is able to get out of his little holding cell, and so they escape the slave ship. And in doing so, he gets knocked out,
Mhm.
and Trip decides that for her to get back home, she needs this dude's help. And so she puts on this device, which is kind of this, which is the same kind. It's something similar to the device that Son Goku wore in Journey to the West, which is this kind of headband that whenever the monk would say certain words, it would tighten and tighten and tighten until he would, and he'd be in unbearable pain, and so the monkey would have to actually do something. But Monkey
Right.
in Enslaved Odyssey to the West, he has to do whatever she commands, and if she dies, he dies, kind of thing.
Right.
So, and then they have a journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't mention the third character though,
Well,
so
yeah, well, he
the
doesn't show
end.
up until he
He
doesn't
shows
show
up
up
fairly
until
late. I
yeah,
mean,
he doesn't show up until later, and his name's Pigsy. Yeah, Pig.
obviously he's related to the original story as well.
Yeah,
He's kind of like a Louisiana gumbo, like what's the word I'm looking for? The dialect he sort of has is sort of interesting.
it's interesting, but it's hard to hear. Like
Somewhat, yeah.
the first 3 or 4 scenes with him, I could not understand what he was saying.
Oh, you don't leave the subtitles on?
I had the subtitles on,
Oh,
but
okay.
it just like I could read it, but like even with with the other 2 characters, I could understand I could hear what they were saying, but with him, he
Mm,
seemed really subdued, really quiet, just kind of hard to
mm,
hear. So it's just
mm.
really, really hard to hear. So, and he is a pig, but
Kind
physically,
of. I mean,
physically and a bit mentally, he's
mentally, yeah, a little bit.
uh, so.
Interesting design for him. He's got like these sort of cybernetic implants that make him look more like a pig as well, which is interesting. I don't really know why he'd have that on his nose. Did his nose get smashed in and he couldn't breathe or something, that they had to put this sort of thing on his nose, and he's got this sort of pig ear thing going on as well. It's a pretty interesting design.
Right.
He's got a claw hand thing because he seems to have lost a hand for some reason.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a pretty decent little setup for the story. I don't know, like what else you can really say, but you're right. I mean, they go on this journey. Monkey, obviously, he's not really interested in doing it, but Trip's got control of him, so he's really offended, I guess, like at the beginning, right? He saw her escaping from this collective ship thing, and she ignored him, and he was shouting, hey, hey, he was trying to get her attention, and she ignored him the whole time, and then suddenly now she's like, oh, I need you, right? After
Right.
it's convenient for her now, so he's not too impressed with that.
Not at all.
No, not really. So
But he does it. He does it to kind of just. But he doesn't like put up any sort of much of a resistance. At first, he's kind of just
not
like,
really.
and then he's like, "Fuck it, we're just gonna do it, whatever."
Right. I think he even realizes himself that if he's going to survive out here, it's not easy, right? So he doesn't want to admit it, maybe to her face, that he needs help, but um, subtly he's kind of like, I guess I'll help, kind of thing. But he's showing this sort of sensitive side that he doesn't want to show because he's probably not used to doing that too, right? From when you learn more about his backstory and stuff, he's just sort of this wandering nomad, so not used to interactions with people. But what did you think about the characters themselves then, like with their interactions and such, and obviously the role in the story? But let's more focus on how especially Monkey and Trip, how they interacted with each other.
Something I want to say, but it kind of spoils the story, so I don't know.
Well, we never do, but we should always say at the beginning of the show that we're probably going to cover some spoilers. I mean,
right.
I think if you're listening to this, you're probably expecting we're going to cover quite a bit of the games. So at this point, Taylor's apparently going to hit spoilers.
I'm going to hit spoilers.
If you want to stop, you stop listening now.
Or just skip ahead a minute.
A lot, probably. We're probably going to discuss this for a bit.
Well, I just think that the Trip and Monkey's relationship pretty much mirrors what Pyramid's doing to its people.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I kind of find it a little... I find that Trip's character is a bit hypocritical.
Mm-hmm.
Because she puts Monkey into the same state that she, to an extent that Pyramid does with the people that it captures.
Right.
So, you think that, this will work good because we can work together kind of thing, but I'm going to be the one that's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's kind of the thing with Pyramid is that it's, I'm in charge, but I'm going to let you people live in a much happier place than what this has become.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, like, I really think Trip is a conniving bitch. I really do, because she reneges on her. She kind of breaks her promise on the deal to let Monkey go after she gets back home.
Mm-hmm.
They get back and the place is completely wiped out. And conveniently,
well, it's deserted. It's not really wiped out, right? It's more deserted because it's not as if the whole place is gone. It's all there still.
Well, I meant the people. The people are.
Yeah, sure.
Are it's that's what I mean.
I guess when you say wiped out, to me it sort of sounds like it's just been vaporized or something.
Right? No. The people have been wiped out, and conveniently, her pappy is the only one that's in the this kind of safety, like what the heck are they calling them?
Bomb shelter kind of.
Yeah, those safety rooms or whatever.
Well, geez, I wonder where she learned her behavior from. Right?
Well, right, and it's just kind of like, why is he the only one here and she's doing all this stuff, and then just like, okay, I'm gonna break my promise and we're gonna go on a suicide mission to attack Pyramid. Really? And that yarg. So, but she kind of really peeves me off, and then she goes to, and then it ends really abruptly with did I do the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And I think that's supposed to but it's supposed to be the whole to the player, left up to you to decide sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like Trip. That's what I'm getting at. So, and I don't mind her.
So you like Monkey then?
I liked Monkey. Like, I don't mind Trip's character. I just don't like her. I think it's good that they kind of made her seem like she's kind of a very, very, she comes off as a weak character, but I don't think she's as weak as she lets people perceive her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but
I think you're right. I think maybe somebody who looks at this game and let's just say, for the sake of argument here, let's say like if somebody's trying to argue about how a lot of video games portray women in a particular fashion as being weak or need to be saved or something,
mm-hmm.
If you look at this game on the surface, you will see that.
Right.
But as you said, if you look a lot deeper, you see that she's actually quite in control of a lot of the stuff that's going on in not necessarily in this world, but especially in her situation. And so even though she needs Monkey, she needs him just to get to her ends, right? She's using him, as you said, in every possible way. And he himself even starts to buy into it.
Right.
little bit. He's kind of like, oh wait, she needs me.
Which is the
She can't
reflection of
survive without me.
the pyramid kind of thing with the slaves, is that they kind
Right.
of, you know,
And and you said she goes back on her promise. She does kind of, but she at one point does say, "You're free." Like
and
she kind of gives up for a moment. She's kind of like, that this is futile. There's nothing we can do. And he's kind of become too
too attached to being
attached or almost submissive
right,
to her, without even knowing it in a way.
which would be kind of how the quote unquote slaves would be in pyramid.
Right. So, but I think it's an interesting dynamic that somebody might look at this game from afar and say, well, look, she's obviously the weak one. He's doing all the, the fighting, and he's the aggressor and all this stuff. But ultimately, she's actually the one who has the power here.
Right.
She could kill him if she wants.
I was gonna say, yeah, I don't mind Monkey. Like, I like some of the interactions that they have dialogue wise. But he to me is a very, very weak character.
I think he's supposed to be, though.
Well, right. And that Trip is actually the one that's like a really strong character. And Pigsy is, Pigsy.
He was good. I mean, he was a good third wheel, actually. Like
right.
You get really used to seeing just Trip and Monkey interacting a lot, and then suddenly this sort of really random X factor comes in that thinks he's. I mean, he's obviously important to the story in a lot of ways. He knows the tech, he knows what's going on, kind of, but he's just kind of like pushing himself in there, kind of wedging between them. Love me, shower me with this affection.
I'm so much better than Monkey.
Right, and it's really interesting to see this sort of random goofball.
Well, and then it kind of it notches up another point that Trip's the one that's in control, because here she has Monkey.
Men falling all over.
Right. Well.
Two.
Right. Not.
Well, there's not too many men to go around, so she's doing pretty good for herself.
Right. And then Pigsy's, he doesn't need that. He doesn't need that device to be like, look, Trip, look what I can do. Look what I can do. Kind of thing. But it's just So.
But his affection sort of comes from a whole different thing, though, right? To like knowing her father and so forth. So it's different.
Yeah. So I mean, I like that. It kind of, in a way, puts it on its head with that. So, and it's nice to see she's not, and I mean, in the sense of physically, yeah, she's not beating up a bunch of people or anything, but just like as a person, as a character person, Trip is incredibly strong compared to Monkey, and Pigsy's just a goofball. So.
All right. Well, just before we move on from there, then we're going to play a quick round of 10 Degrees of Taylor here. I actually had some trouble thinking of what could we sort of do here,
right?
Because it's an interesting game in that it's laid out in a particular way, and it's tough to sort of break it down with this sort of game, if you will. But anyways, I was kind of thinking of, okay, let's just use those three characters. This should be really simple to sort of just give them a decent rating.
Okay.
But I was kind of thinking, like, how can we base it on the one factor is a little bit hard to judge, but I was kind of thinking of the performance, because from my understanding, the actors did perform, at least the cutscenes for the characters, not necessarily for the action sequences and all that, but the actors did perform for the characters, so that kind of comes into effect. Also, the voice acting for the characters, and then obviously just their part in the story and so forth. So I was thinking we can base it on that criteria. So why don't we start with Monkey?
Oh, well, Monkey does double.
You kind of said a bunch your piece, I guess, but
yeah, Monkey's done double duty there. Like the what's his name? Circus, you said?
Andy Serkis?
Yeah. He does double duty. He does something else as well.
Yeah.
But if we're just going on the merits of Monkey alone,
just on Monkey
alone,
yeah, sure.
I would probably, like, performance and everything, I would probably give him like an 8. I'm weighing in the performance a lot there. I think he does a good job. I mean, if he's got all these credentials, I'd imagine he would do a good job. But
I would imagine so.
I think
he apparently did a lot of the writing for the script, I guess, as well too. So I found that interesting.
Okay.
So maybe he has a large affinity to obviously where he drew the inspiration from. which was I didn't expect that actually. I just thought maybe he just kind of they asked him, "Would you like to do the performance capture for this?" And he was probably just like, "Yeah," but I guess he had quite a bit of involvement. So.
Huh.
So that was interesting. I'm also going to give him an 8. I almost want to bump it up a little bit. I really enjoyed. I thought the voice acting was excellent. If you hear his Andy Serkis, obviously his natural voice, it sounds nothing like Monkey. I thought as I was playing the game, I actually didn't even think it was him doing the voice acting. I thought he just did the motion capture. And then when I saw that it was the full performance was him, I was really surprised. His voice sounded very different than when I've heard him speak, just whatever in an interview or whatnot, because he's British, and he has not a thick accent, but he certainly has like a specific kind of accent. Like you hear him speak
like a bit of
naturally.
A posh one, or
kind of, yeah. Kind of,
little,
but then if you look
affluent?
at his other performance, look at Gollum, right? He didn't sound obviously anything like his natural speaking. So it was interesting. He was in Tintin as well. I don't know if you saw the Steven Spielberg Tintin. He was Captain Haddock in it, and he was quite good in it as Haddock. But so that really like sold it a lot for me. I was just really impressed with just the versatility of the performance, and I could feel that it was different than what other video game might have in the cutscenes. So, but yeah. All right. What about Trip then?
This is I'd probably. It's kind of tough. I'm so mixed with emotion for Trip.
Not like Pigsy there.
Not like Pigsy. I would probably give. Like, I didn't think her performance was bad or anything, and knowing the stuff about Circus, I might want to, like, put it up a little higher, but I'd probably give it, like, an 8, 8.5, too.
Oh, that's really high.
Because I like the dichotomy of the character. So, and I didn't think her performance was that bad, so...
No, I thought her performance was quite good, actually. Yeah. And that's saying something, because a lot of games, it's hard for multiple voice actors, or in this case, actors, to do a good job. It's usually somebody's pulling a lot of the weight, and then a few other characters are doing okay, and then a lot of them are not that great. But I thought she held her own quite well. So I'll probably give her a little bit lower, 7.5. I think the dynamic between the two is really good, and her voice acting was quite strong. But there were still a few moments where I thought, well, it's kind of a little bit dwarfed. Even though I didn't think it was Andy Serkis doing the voice acting, I thought that the performance of the mysterious, at the time, voice actor was a little stronger.
Well, like I said, yeah, knowing that now, I'd probably, I might push it up a little bit higher, realizing that he's kind of altered his voice that much. So,
but you might have to hear his actual, in a interview maybe, and then you can sort of see, that's pretty interesting. So,
all right, and then Pigsy.
Pigsy? Now, the actor who played Pigsy, I don't know at all, but I read a bit about him as well, and he's done a bunch of voice acting for other games and stuff, and I think he was a natural actor before that as well, so.
Okay. I really don't know what to feel about this character. I really don't.
It was different.
It just... He if he is meant to be jarring, he did a good job of that.
Well, I think definitely that was a big part of it. I think in a lot of ways.
Right.
I mean, in
he
pretty
rocks
much
the boat.
Yeah, purposely, right? In the story, he's supposed to do that. The acting itself was kind of like, what the hell? This is really interesting. Obviously, trying to have this random romantic relationship that comes out of the blue. I think you're right. I think the whole idea was it was supposed to be incredibly jarring. It sort of put the whole thing in flux, the whole relationship situation out of whack.
Right.
And I think that was the purpose. So.
I would probably give him like a 7.5 in there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably about the same. I'll probably give him about 7.5. I like the design. I really like the sort of cyborg hand that he kept using to claw at things and cheat when he was racing with Monkey.
Totally beat his ass.
I beat him too. I love that that first scene though when he's just like this fat dude and he's not really doing anything and Monkey starts climbing and suddenly you look up and Pigsy's kind of already not quite halfway, but he's vaulted up quite a few levels, and Monkey's just, it's cheating you. He says
Right, right.
something funny. And so, but I thought the performance was interesting, and again, I think I might be leaning a bit more on the design. I actually like the design was quite different than Monkey and Trip are a little generic,
Yeah, they are.
not
They
not
are.
bad, but he definitely stands out between the three of them. He looks the most unique.
Hmm.
So, all right, well, oh, I don't know where should we move on from there. We
Um,
covered a lot of story there.
yeah, there's what about how did you feel about the combat of the game?
Combat,
The combat.
yeah, I liked it. I thought it was sprinkled nicely. There was some interesting kind of at first I wasn't expecting it, but there were some parts where you're using a gun and stuff, and I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And
Oh,
I,
the staff shooting thing. Pew pew.
oh, I was thinking more of the when you kind of jump on a robot and then you
Oh, oh.
trash it and then you take over and you can
Hmm.
kind of shoot at other robots and stuff. I thought that was neat. I was not expecting that, and I'm glad that it wasn't overused as well. It was used a handful of times, and that was it. They weren't constantly, you got to defend the base or something. I think you had to defend the boat one time, and then you had to defend Trip maybe 2 or 3 times at the most that I
Mm.
can think of. So I thought it was an interesting little sprinkle in there. The actual like hand-to-hand combat stuff I thought was pretty neat, and even though it was somewhat repetitive, mm, they did a good job of balancing how many guys were coming at you and stuff, so you wouldn't just keep mashing the buttons. You would try to parry sometimes, and you would try to roll out of the way and things like that. And some of the boss
Right.
battles, you had to use, as you just said, the staff shot where you could stun
Hmm.
and stuff.
I
So,
kind of felt that a lot of the boss fights were a bit repetitive. I mean,
well,
it
it didn't
seemed
help
to,
that they reused one basically 3 times. So
well, yeah, but I meant
basically, I mean, it was altered one time, but
you're pretty much doing the same thing of, stun them
stun,
or
attack.
right, and then they just
Yeah.
attack, which is
Well, except the last boss.
well, right. I personally
Similar motion, but
right.
different.
The last boss was a bit more just cinematic, it felt to me, than really really difficult. I did
Okay.
like it was fine. I personally like the gauntlet when you're defending Trip when she's trying to program to reroute the programming for Leviathan,
So
where you're
the columns and stuff,
right,
or
right, right.
the
When
columns,
those
that
are
was a cool fight. That was a
that
cool
was
fight.
I enjoyed that because that was that
That was pretty
was
intense.
it was
You
fun,
had to go across the screen and stuff. It was tough.
right?
That was a good
So
one. I really enjoyed the intro. I thought, um, they obviously showed you how to use some of the buttons and things like that, but I thought it was quite intense. Like, and I thought, oh, I guess I can die here. Like a lot of games don't really give you that intensity. They're just, okay, push this and you'll kill this guy kind of thing. And you
right,
climb
right.
here. And you could, I didn't die, but I presume you can die there. I'm pretty sure you can not make certain jumps and things. I thought it was a good, intense intro.
Mm.
Get a good feel of how Monkey controls and stuff, but also that this game isn't just going to be a complete cakewalk. You're going to have to do some stuff here.
And I don't know if you have, but I have never played any of the Uncharted games.
I have not. I have seen one of my friends play a little bit of the first game, and that's it. And I was just looking at it thinking, this might be fun, but I just didn't really buy
Now,
into it.
wouldn't it be
So
kind of similar though? Aren't they kind of
from what I read, it sounds like some stuff is similar here, but I don't know exactly how much. So
okay?
I can't really comment. I don't know.
Well, no, I bring it up just because it would kind of give me a little bit more, because I enjoyed it enough to at least try some other games like it. Because I mean, it is a very linear. I hate to bring up the word like that. It's a very linear kind of experience because you're going from point A to point B with some other
There's a
random.
straight line progression. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, but at the same time, there are
It's
some points where you're allowed to sort of
yeah.
uh,
There.
yeah, and also figure out, okay, I don't want to fight these robots. I want to skip right past them, and you can do some of the platforming stuff to kind of get out of the way, which
Right.
it didn't come up much, especially near the end. It was more, you got to do this to get this to happen kind of thing.
Mm.
But at the beginning, they allowed some of that freedom.
Mm. Well, I mean, I enjoyed the game enough to try other games like it, like the,
Mm.
excuse me, like the Uncharted games and stuff. It's just
Well,
because
those
I'm
are certainly rated very high, so
right. So I guess that's my 2 cents on what I felt about the game. I enjoyed it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I did too. I thought a lot of the reviews I saw after the fact, and I'd seen reviews years ago as well, but I think most of them are pretty spot on about a lot of the stuff with this game. There was I didn't have any massive problems with the game when I look at it as a whole package.
Mm.
There were some technical things that came up once in a while, like weird scaling effects or this and that, and some music that was jarring or whatever. But the game didn't just die down on me. The loading times were a little long at time. If you did die, there was a few points where I died in a challenging part, and then it wasn't unbearable, obviously, but I was surprised at how long some of the loading times were, and if I died a few times, I got stuck doing them, and that kind of wasn't that fun for me. But as a whole, I think it's a pretty good package that I'm pretty sure you can find this game for not very much. I'd be surprised if it's over $20. I'm sure it's well under $20, and I wouldn't probably hesitate to suggest if you have interest in Andy Serkis's performances, you might be interested in this game, or if you just want to try something in the vein of an Uncharted type game or whatnot. This is a decent pickup.
I would say for $20, yeah, I'd say that's not bad pricing for it. I mean,
I think this game's even like $10 new in North America. Well, because it didn't, as far as I understand, it was pushed quite hard by Namco, but I read that it came out at the time of a bunch of other blockbusters, like early before the Christmas season started. So it just kind of got swarmed by sequels, whatever other sequels were coming out that people were anticipating and stuff. So this game just kind of got buried under the pile. So there's quite a few copies of it floating around, and it's not a hard game to come by, generally speaking, from what I understand, and it's not very expensive. So it's something you definitely can buy cheap, though, and put on the shelf. And maybe it's not something you're going to revisit all the time, or maybe only play it once. But even at that price, it's not that bad. I think this is something I'll eventually revisit, the harder mode, maybe in a couple years, but not every weekend or something.
And it's what, a little over 10 hours, maybe around 10 hours.
Yeah, maybe somewhere around there, depending how leisurely you go through it or how fast you go through it. But it's not overly long. It's a nice, comfortable number, and you don't feel that it's being stretched out. That's a nice thing about this game.
Right.
There's a little bit where I was like, I guess they could have trimmed that out, but it wasn't unbearable. Again, as I said, I've already used this word twice in the last 2 minutes, but it wasn't just a few games that just keep stretching stuff out. Like Castlevania Lords of Shadow is a nice game that I really enjoyed, but there's parts of it just stretched on, and this game did a nice job of not doing that.
Right.
We didn't talk about, and you're generally a platform guy. We didn't really talk about the platform stuff in this game.
Well, it doesn't feel like a platformer to me.
Not overly, obviously,
because
there's some fairly heavy platform elements compared to a lot of other action-y games.
I meant more in the sense of you really just have to press X in a certain direction to get to, like, jump onto certain areas and stuff. And yeah, there's certain times where the hold, whatever that is, the ball will like fall down or something, so you got to be quick. But for the most part, it's not like that's something I don't hate, but I don't feel like it's really doing anything for me. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, Then, I mean, when you do have crevices and stuff you jump over, or there's times where you have to throw Trip across and then pick her up, which they're early, like, about a third of the way through the game or so, when you're going across the bridge towards the end of it. That was probably an ideal place for that. I think that was probably at its best. But, I mean, even that wasn't, A, that long, and B, really that difficult. So,
I mean, most of it's not too difficult. You get a few parts where you get the old, this fans and flames sort of thing, where you got to avoid fans or avoid flames. But, again, not, I guess, a big portion of the game. But I think that they did a decent enough job to emphasize, well, his nickname is Monkey for a reason, right?
Right. Well, yeah, he is.
They didn't completely eliminate it as well, which was good. But maybe they could have made that a little bit more challenging, some of the parts. One I did like was the Big Fan. Do you remember the Big Fan one? It's not a hard puzzle, but where you got to spin
Right.
this fan and go to the top to pull down the blade and stuff. And
Mm.
I like that puzzle. It was not hard, but I liked the scale of it was kind of cool. It was pretty big, but yeah. Well, okay. Well, that's fair enough for that aspect then. Well, is there anything else you want to cover? I mean, I was gonna just kind of not really mention much about the music. Again, this is a game that it's fairly subtle. It doesn't really take
Mm.
much precedence in this game. So I think they maybe wanted to really emphasize the character actors, obviously. So maybe that's why the music is not as prevalent.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I agree with that. I like I mentioned before, the pacing of the story is a little, just because of how the last tenth of the game is.
Hmm.
So
Which is
it's
really too bad in a way because I agree with you. I actually enjoy the story. And when I got to the ending, it's a bit of a head scratcher, obviously, but as you start to break it down a little bit more, you're thinking, well, it's too bad that it's kind of abrupt. You get to the final chapter. We didn't mention this game has 14 chapters. You get to the final chapter, and you start to get the bit of pieces because, again, another thing we didn't mention, there's these masks that are
right.
scattered across the game, and they give you this weird maybe second or two insight into something. You don't really catch what it is all the time. They'll show you a desert, and then the next one you get will be a
Farmlands.
whale splashing out of the ocean or something, and you're thinking, what the hell is this supposed to mean? And obviously you get it answered by the end, but not completely. And maybe that's again what they were going for, but I think they could have set it up a little bit better, and you get this gigantic battle, and then suddenly you get this hugely philosophical moment suddenly just thrust at you at the end, and you're thinking, wow, they probably could have drew that out a little bit clearer, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it's not bad, and it will harken to a few other sci-fi stories.
Mm,
To an extent, I don't think it's quite the same as some of the other ones. I don't want to mention it because it'd go back to spoiling it out of the blue for people who
right.
skipped ahead. but it's yeah. There's certain things about it where you're like, oh, it's kind of like this, but it's kind of not. And you're like, oh, okay. I don't mind the abrupt ending. However, um, I what's the word I want to use for this? I don't. There's something to be said when it abruptly ends to where it's like, well, you decide kind of thing. How do you feel about it?
Mm,
Um, okay, all right. Okay, if you follow the characters well enough, you can kind of understand yourself what in the story is going to happen next. But it feels a little ham-fisted to be just like, hey, what'd you think? Just a little. It's just
a little.
so.
I heard that they did have some intention of maybe doing a sequel, but in a way, and it's not that I ever want something to fail, but it's probably a good thing that they don't do a sequel to this.
Hmm.
Even though, as you're saying, the ending is a bit abrupt and so forth. I don't know if I'd want to explore more. I think it's ending, even if you're just thinking that was crap or whatever. I don't think you need to expand this. It's said what it needs to say, and you could do more, but I don't want to further
Exhaust the
that.
point.
Well, and you could obviously go to other points and so on, but I think it's just good as it is, even if you don't like it. You don't really need to push it because you think, well, we need to answer all these things because that's what fans want. And unfortunately, a lot of people do want that. They don't want to think about it. They just want to receive
Well, no,
these.
yeah, kind of. I mean, it's I having those pockets of unknown is what makes some stories really, really fun because then it allows people to kind of discuss and talk about it in their own kind of way.
Mm,
You really shouldn't have everything explained for you. Personally, I think because it feels then you're just kind of being badgered or just kind of thrown information. And then it's just like, okay, all right. Okay, and it doesn't allow any sort of creative juices of your own to be like, oh, what if it's like this, or what if it's like this, and yeah, sometimes and that's kind of where you get in trouble with a lot of fans is maybe they'll hold off and then do it some years down the road, and then people are like, what the fuck, we had no idea, this is not what we had in mind at all. And
Well, if you wait too long, sometimes it really hurts the project.
cough, cough, Star Wars. So
Well, I heard they're making Blade Runner 2, so
oh yeah, that too. God
all
knows.
kinds of stuff. Alien, the list goes on.
Oh,
Right?
right. That was just the one that popped into my head.
But in this case, it works. It works the way it is because if you answer the question, it plays off of what you just already said earlier on about the relationship between Trip and Monkey, and something else that happens at the end. It's so hard to explain without just saying it all out, but it explains like this weird way that humanity has kind of rolled around with, let's receive lots of things, right? Let's receive as much information as we can. And I'll kind of put it to bed there, and you and I can talk off air about it if we'd like to.
And we can make fun of everybody else.
It's another battle for the mind. Greg. All right. Well, do you have any final thoughts then before we wrap it up?
Really, just like I said earlier, I enjoyed it. Thank you for passing it along my way, even though it didn't really pique my interest. While I enjoyed it, I'm not actively, probably just because of the situation I'm in, and B, what all the other stuff we got going on right at the moment. I'm not like actively trying to find a whole bunch of different games, so I guess this is a nice turn of events to kind of think, hey, surprise, here's something, and it turned out for the better.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't burn you.
I was not fit with rage.
That's at least good to hear, because when you initially I asked you just how's it going, are you okay with it, and you were just kind of like so it sounds like you kind of rolled a little bit over to the more positive side, it makes me feel a little more fulfilled.
Yeah, it's not as ho-hum about it, but I'm not like zooming Jesus, it's the greatest thing ever kind of thing. It's just like, it's good. And if you haven't, you might want to give it a shot, especially for, the low prices that it's probably available at.
Right. Fair enough. I'll copy that sentiment, and I think it's worth looking into if you want a short game that's got a somewhat interesting message to convey, and like a little bit of action. So all right, well, let's close up shop.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Power On Podcast Portable, which featured Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. I keep thinking it's Odyssey to the West or Journey to the West. Is really confusing. But it is Enslaved, Odyssey to the West. And it's a pretty good one. Seems to be getting a sort of a thumbs up for both of us, I guess. Yeah. Well, from me for sure. So take a look at it if you're interested. And we hope to catch you again for the next episode. Thanks again for listening.